Murdoch?
So we got, I guess this week's going to be mainly a lot on talking about the professional wrestling because there's been a lot of movement within inside of each company. And we'll start with the release of Bray Wyatt, I guess a couple days ago, maybe?
Yeah. That came as kind of a shock. I mean, that was one of their most popular wrestlers.
Right. And, usually here's a guy, like John Cena was a good guy and was selling so much merch they would not let him turn bad because he didn't want to stop selling all that merch.
Right.
Now all of a sudden, one of their top sellers on merchandise was released for cost-cutting efforts.
Right.
A lot of the stuff that he was doing, from my understanding, he was putting his own money into getting masks done up and.
Right, and he was getting I believe Tom Savane is the one that created his mask.
Right.
Was it him or Rick Baker?
I think Rick Baker.
Rick Baker may have been the one that did it. Yeah. But anyways, he's getting very top shelf makeup artists, FX guys that are making these for him. And I don't know, man. I look back on his time when he was coming out with the with the lamp and the slow walk out with the lamp and how the place used to just light up when he would come out, and it was just like, man, that dude is so over. I don't ever feel like they've done Bray Wyatt justice.
Bray Wyatt definitely was always start and stop, and every time he got the new version that they wanted him to be put over, he got it over.
Yeah.
And now, too bad Brody Lee died, but now the entire Wyatt family is on the damn. They could all rejoin forces. Because I was telling the guy that I think if I was them, you should see like Braun Strowman, Eric Redbeard, and Bray Wyatt should all form back up, and then just be another. I mean, it's not that hard to do. And then you could easily get Brody Lee Jr. I know he's 10 years old, but AEW has him come in and do Dark Order stuff every so often. So you just need him doing something every so often on television. You've got Bo Dallas, who's his brother.
Right.
And then you got Mike Rotundo. All of them were released. So if Mike Rotundo wanted to really go on the road too, you could really pull a lot and have like this big group. All I know is I would not sign an exclusive deal. I would sign you might be AEW's your home, but you're jumping to New Japan, NWA, Impact. I mean, it's crazy right now in the world of professional wrestling.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I agree with that. And talking about that thing, talking about the releases and stuff, of course, there's rumor mill that Daniel Bryan and CM Punk have both are potentially going to be signing with AEW.
Right.
And honestly, boy, if they were to get CM Punk to sign, what a feather in their cap, because, CM Punk's been weird. I wonder if when he parted company with WWE and went to do his UFC stint, I wonder had one of the matches or both the matches that had he won, I wonder if he would have came back to pro wrestling sooner. I wonder sometimes if part of his exile is because he doesn't want to be, he wanted to take time, I guess, for himself to kind of come to terms with the losses. And I say that like he was devastated. I mean, I don't know, but he did not fare well in either match. Of course, obviously, Mickey Gall ran through him, and then the next guy toyed with him. But be it here or there, though, man, I don't think there's no shame in the game. Look, at the end of the day, man, he had the stones to, put on the gloves and make the walk, and he got in there and went for it,
He had a lot more to lose because of his name value.
Right.
Than, the guy who's pulling the curtain for the UFC.
That's right.
Because they lose, no one remembers it. But CM Punk's getting headlined, where his big thing, remember when they would come on, was him on the bicycle doing, pushing hard to a training session because he had no footage of him fighting in the past. So in turn, I mean, he had a lot to lose. I think I would have liked to have seen him come back sooner instead of waiting 6 years. I know that.
Yeah.
But if he shows up, I'll be interested. I guess Darby Allin, it looks like, because on this week's AEW, Sting and Darby Allin were in the back. And Darby Allin made some comments about going to Chicago because that's where they said, even those that say they're best in the world. And the first edition of Rampage is going to be on Friday night. And then it's going to, in Chicago. And then Sunday is also.
I was talking about pro wrestling earlier today, and we were talking about the numbers that WWE's doing as far as television numbers. And, and I mean, granted, I just feel the worst thing that ever happened for pro wrestling, the reason we're finding ourselves in the position we're finding ourselves in right now, is because Vince McMahon killed all his competition. Now, I say that, and McMahon was not the sole reason for losing or for these businesses, because there was mismanagement. Paul Heyman could not balance his checkbook to save his life. He could promote, he could get guys into gimmicks, he could coach them into getting them over. He knew how to put on a very appealing product, but when it came to the financial side, he was a train wreck. And then, of course, WCW, there was, a number of things that caused them to go out. But at the end of the day, be it here nor there, McMahon successfully won his bid to drive all of his competition out of business, and he did it. And now, you're seeing a resurgence, but wrestling doesn't have the heat or the pull that it used to. It just doesn't.
No, because they've spent 15 years pretty much losing the entire fan base.
Right.
And that's number one. I think number two, when it comes to what McMahon's doing, look at NXT. He's brought Karrion Kross up that was undefeated in NXT. Everyone was really howling him. They were excited about him showing up. He shows up on Raw and he loses to Jeff Hardy. And then he loses the next night, or the next week, I believe, to someone else. So, if you can go down the list of people who were in NXT, from Enzo and Big Cass, majority of them came up there with a lot of excitement, and then they turned. McMahon as treating them like he did as if they were in WCW or in ECW, something to that nature. It's crazy just seeing the way he changes the characters. They should be getting built for WWE television. So why he changes their name as soon as they show up on WWE main roster is insane.
And not only is that insane, because you got to think about it. The same guy that's watching NXT is watching fucking Raw.
Yeah.
So why do you think that if the guy over here is known as, Chief J Strongbow here on NXT, and you show up fucking over on Raw, and now he's going to be Tatanka, nobody buys that crap.
It makes
It's
no
the same
sense.
cat.
And they don't even change that. I think it was the Viking Warriors went through multiple names, and it was like they had a gimmick in NXT, they were over, and then they changed it for whatever reason. And so in turn, I don't know how anyone from NXT is excited to go to the main roster, because as soon as you get there, you're going to be treated like a second-class citizen. You're in the same company. The whole idea of NXT is to train you to come to the main roster. But so when you get to the main roster, they treat you like dirt.
Right.
It makes no sense. Right. So McMahon's pretty much killing his own business with the release of so many people, and he's released some big stars. And I'm shocked that he released Bray Wyatt. Because Bray Wyatt...
Are they doing anything with Bray Wyatt at the time?
Well, jobbing him out. They create him and job him out to where he has to be recreated. That's what they're doing with Bray Wyatt. He was getting prepped to come back. He was already in...
Oh.
So in August he was supposed to show back up. Oh. He was training, getting into shape again, Who knows?
But for whatever reason, buddy, they got to bring Goldberg back.
And then even like someone like John Cena. You know,
yeah. I think the only reason John Cena's back is because they're going to have him beat Ric Flair's streak.
I have no clue if they will or won't. You know, I mean, you got Roman Reigns doing the best gimmick he's done ever.
And nobody's watching it.
Well, SmackDown gets watched by more people than Raw.
Hey, how about that?
I think so. So
that would, boy, talk about a turn of events.
Well, one, it's 2 hours.
Right.
So that's a plus for them. How Raw has turned into what it is. When Monday Night Football comes back on, they better be prepped, because if their plan is to have Bill Goldberg or John Cena on Monday Night Raw, they're just going to drop. But they're going to drop an AEW. I mean, they're getting close. Look, AEW's been 2 weeks where they've been over 1 million people. Okay, WWE's only 1.73 or 1.84. So they're really, I mean, that AEW on Wednesday is nipping at the heels of Monday Night Raw. You know, who would have figured that would have happened? And McMahon's in there. Well, they're not the same competition. But now, what I will say this, he did say that AEW's like WCW. They had a whole bunch of Turner's money. They had all the assets of the Ted Turner corporations, and they all went out of business. It could easily change, because, well, let's roll right into this. Domino's Pizza pulled the plug on their ads because of the Nick Gage, Chris Jericho matches.
Right.
And they had that hardcore matches Wednesday. It was fine. I'm not a fan of hardcore matches anymore. I don't think I've ever been a big fan of them, because they just look too dangerous, and there's no payday really.
Right.
Putting a light bulb across someone's head or going through a pane of glass. What I mean, you could get seriously hurt, you know. But with Domino's pulling their ads, I mean, it's like, remember when Bellator had Kimbo Slice take on Dada 5000?
Yeah.
And, you know, who was Dada's heart stopped in the back, I think? One of them guys died, and it wasn't many months later, Kimbo actually died. But had one of them guys actually died in the ring, Paramount would have said, all right, we're done. We're pulling the plug on MMA.
That's right.
And they would have been.
Well, so, because they were putting together, I mean, shame on Bellator, man, because they put together some just absolute travesty. I feel like that Kimbo Slice Dada 5000 match set MMA back 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
But anyways.
Well, I think it set Bellator back more than it set MMA back.
I would agree with that. Speaking of which, real quick on the side note, did you see that Pitbull lost?
I did.
Yeah, I was surprised by that.
You're right.
So I like Pitbull.
I do like Pitbull too.
But I mean, the guy that beat him, I mean, he took it to him. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So.
But real quick, if you had more major corporations pull the plug on AEW's ad revenue, TNT will pull the plug on AEW.
Well,
and I know Tony Khan and his family's got billions of dollars to play with, but if they're really a successful business, just like with Panda Energy, it got to a point when they told Dixie, like, all right, you're going to have to start making money. You can't keep being $40 million in the hole, $70 million in the hole.
So, Domino's Pizza pulling their advertising, I mean, I don't think that's probably not the first time that an advertiser has pulled money from a pro wrestling group. I'm sure WWE's had their back, especially back in their Attitude era when they were more adult. But you know, the thing about it is, I mean, that Nick Gage, he's a gimmick guy. He's like a B version of Mick Foley. Okay. I agree with you. I don't think it takes any skill to do those type of matches. You know, and what's the life cycle for somebody that does those kind of matches as far as like, you know, how long are they going to be able to do the ring? I mean, let's be honest here. Hulk Hogan Okay, he couldn't go in the ring and do a leg drop now to save his life. His hips are shot.
His back's jacked up.
Yeah, from all the years of fucking just pancaking his ass to the mat.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I mean, it's like, and you think about it. Hogan wasn't coming off the top rope doing it. He wasn't doing it out on the pavements. He wasn't on the side of the cement. He always did it in the ring. And the ring's designed to give with you. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And I know there's different degrees. Some rings are more stiff than others. But being here and there, though, he was always doing it in a, for lack of a better word, he was doing it as safely as he possibly could deliver. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And just the years of that, of repeatedly doing that same move over and over and over. I mean, it finally caught up with you. I mean, it's a very physical sport. And, you look at Mick Foley. If you went to Mick Foley now and said, hey, man, need you to wrestle, we're going to send you on the road, he couldn't do it. You might get a one-off match from him, and then he'll be crippled for the next 6 months after he does it. But, all those years of the and don't get me wrong, man, when he was in WCW and he had his matches with the Nasty Boys, they used to leave us talking just some of the sheer brutality of their matches. And then, of course, he did some amazing stuff when he got over in WWE. But at the end of the day, he was like Razor Ramon and Scott Hall. At the end of the day, he just became a jobber with walkout music because it was rare that Mick Foley was beating anybody. All he went out there to do was get beat up and thrown off the top of the building.
Right. But the thing is, I think with the hardcore guys, especially like the Nick Gages out there, is like you're wrestling in front of 100 fans. You might get 500. I don't know. It's not like you're getting crazy numbers. I'm still surprised. I was just saying about the other night about when Mick Foley got thrown off the cage. I don't know how he was able to sell that to anybody in the back. Like, I would have said that would have been an instantaneous no, and I wouldn't care what. The only way I would have seen him doing it would be like he do it now, and it looks like trash, but have all the fucking pads laying out there.
Think about this too. Think about what if he misjudged the jump? Not only could he hurt himself, but what if he hit some of the fans?
Right. He could have. I mean, it's so far. I mean, he could have hit.
Or he hit one in and out of the mic. Yeah, then the Spanish guys are standing there watching him come sailing down, and next thing you know, man, he's fucking diving through one of them, and now they're confined to a wheelchair for the rest of their life.
But the one good thing, at least had he fallen off there, and I know he got seriously hurt, but he could have at least got some type of insurance. Some type of where like a GCW. I doubt if they have you're not getting watched by that many people. Right. So you're going to jump off, do something insane. New Jack was the same thing. Oh. He would jump off 15 feet, balconies or whatever. And what was it for?
And I tell you, what's sad about the fact that New Jack, that became kind of his thing. I understand he was feeding his character and his gimmick. But when he was in Smoky Mountain, he had some of the best minds as far as for in-ring, Ricky Morton, Tracy Smothers. The Rock and Roll Express mentored and kind of coached him. He had Jim Cornette.
Right.
He had people around him that were able to direct him and really kind of lead him to where, it's like, why are you jumping and doing all? It's fine if you're going to be a tough guy, but there's other ways to get that point across.
But you know what? I don't think he was doing any of the jumping in Smoky Mountain.
He wasn't. I don't think he started doing that stuff until he went to ECW.
He had so much bad blood in Smoky Mountain that I bet you money, had he turned good eventually, that place would have... He would have been just like in ECW. Where,
did you ever listen to any of his interviews from Smoky Mountain?
Yeah.
Oh, man, he was... Let me tell you something, man. He blurred the line between fantasy and reality, and he was a master of it.
But that was Ricky Morton and Tracy Smothers saying, say this to get you over.
Right, that's what I'm saying, man. And, man, he did it. And, and like I said, you don't have a career like the Rock and Roll Express has had by doing the insane jumps off the fucking tops of the, And if you think about it, Ricky Morton and them back in the day, I guess you could say were considered high flyers because they would go off the top rope.
Right.
Limited. They weren't always up there, you know what I'm saying? But they were very much like the old school guys, man.
Well, they were cross body block.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Yeah, they kept the stuff in the ring.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And they did stuff that, yes, again, as we've said, it does take a toll. It beats your body up over time. But they're not doing, let me tell you something. You've got a lot more reps of getting body slammed inside the ring than you do coming off the second story of the Civic Center and diving through tables.
Right, yeah, absolutely. And then, my last thing I'll say about it is, if you look at Mick Foley's house, yeah, he's banged up, has a lot of trouble walking and getting on his knees and all that stuff, but at least he got paid,
Right, you got guys out here doing stupid stuff and not making any money.
With 5 people in there, and then the promoter don't pay them, and they go home and they're cut up, they're banged up, they get infections, all that good stuff, and they get nothing to show for it. Except now they can't walk very well because they, blew their back out.
Right.
All right. So that's all the pro wrestling talk. Well, Master of the Universe came out, Revelations, Kevin Smith's new on Netflix.
Yes.
And of course, it's getting bombarded. Some people are saying they hate it. Some people say they love it. You got people going on Rotten Tomatoes and posting reviews. So they get negative.
Review bombing.
Right. And, so in turn, I've watched the first 2 episodes of the 5. For me, I didn't care about Master of the Universe back in the day, if you will. It was a fine show. But even now, when I'm watching, I don't sit there. I don't get what people are going nuts about.
Well, they're going nuts because of the lack of He-Man. The previews leading into this basically had you believing you were getting ready to see He-Man and Skeletor continue their rivalry. And then what basically happened is that now this has turned into the Tila show. People start pointing out too that it used to be the original was He-Man and the Masters of the Universe. This show's only known as Masters of the Universe.
Right.
Okay. And so there's been a lot of heavy criticism that it's a very woke agenda here being forced on you. A lot of people are being critical of Kevin Smith, saying that he never was a fan. They feel like that he's sabotaging the property deliberately. Let me say this: I do enjoy He-Man and was a fan and I wanted to see this and check it out. I watched it and I didn't think it was terrible. I think Kevin Smith tells a good story. I also feel like that had this been a storyline done as a part of a season and not as hey, we're relaunching it and here it is, I think it might have been, I'm not saying people would have been like, oh, that was great. They probably still would have bitched about it because, the direction he's kind of gone here with it a little bit. But by and large, man, is it the best is it one that had me geeking out going, ooh, wow, it's awesome, No, but I think that they've done okay with some of the representations that they've done with like the Merman and Beastman and stuff like that. But there's some things even in the show that it's just kind of you just kind of look at it and go, no, that's not working. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't work for me. So. But anyways, there's still more to come from it. They've, but Kevin Smith's really taken a bath on this one, and there's a lot of bad blood. And because basically at the end of the day, listen, you can talk about, you don't want to do fan service. You want to talk about, I'm not going to let the comic nerds drive my story. I appreciate that up to a point, but when you take something like Masters of the Universe that's been around since the 80s, that has the loyal fan base that it has, why on God's green earth would you not want to come out for a fan, for a He-Man fan? Why wouldn't you want to light that segment up on fire and have them like biting at the bit for more He-Man? Right. You see what I'm saying? It's like, why don't you want to bring your A game with it and have them fired up and wanting to buy. I mean, it's like Thundercats. Cartoon Network here several years ago relaunched Thundercats. And, the first episode was like, hey, that's pretty good. And I liked, they were kind of expanding their time there on Thundera. And they were kind of expanding the universe. But boy, talk about boring. That was so boring. And it's like, I couldn't take it, man. I quit watching it.
Right.
And it's like, why is the Thundercats boring? You can't sit here and tell me that you can't develop a story and keep it going. And keep, bringing back the family. I understand they want to introduce new characters and stuff. That's perfectly fine and it's welcomed. But people also want to see the classics and stuff like that. And that's one thing I will say. I think Kevin Smith's done a good job with Masters of the Universe. Is I think he did a very good job with Skeletor. Mark Hamill's playing Skeletor. And you get to see, and they've done some interesting things with a few of the characters.
Right.
That I thought was kind of neat. There's some concepts that they introduced there that were kind of neat. But
you were saying something earlier before we started recording, and but you were talking about the Me Too movement, that they've got everybody so far on the defensive. What was it? How was it going? That they automatically, when they see Tila or they think it's going to be woke, they immediately start spinning, and they're not giving it a shot.
Well, because that it's been so venomous, and you've got people there, it's not that. Listen,
and I think that's a really good point. Honestly, I think that's probably we are now in a position where if you see they change someone's race, people go, "Oh my God, you can't have a black guy playing a white guy. You can't have a white guy playing a black guy."
Listen, I remember when they introduced Jon Stewart in the Green Lantern universe in DC Comics back in the 80s, right? He has gone on to be one of the better characters in the Green Lantern, all on the Cartoon Network and stuff like that. On the Justice League, he's the Green Lantern on that Justice League, and it's very appropriate.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's like I enjoy that, but I don't feel like it's being forced down my throat either. I think the thing about it is I think they go out of their way to tinker and mess and carry on and change characters just for the sake of appeasing the minority crowd. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So yes, I think when people start coming into stuff and they feel like that here comes this, this woke feminism being forced down my throat, immediately turns people off.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good point, though. So, all right, so we've hit the bottom of the list. Do you have anything else you want to speak about?
The only thing I want to speak on is this right here. That's all I got.
All right. So until next week, I'm Bryan.
I'm Iron Dutch Murdoch.
And we'll see you later. Thanks for listening to Potato Shop Podcast. You can listen to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Podbean, and all the other groovy places you listen to your podcast. Also, please follow us on our different social medias. Instagram at Potato Shop Podcast. Twitter at Potato Shop PC, then swing over to YouTube, subscribe to our channel, and click the notification bell, and you'll find us at Potato Shop PC. So until next time, later.